You know, the only thing that would have been better than a Balrog down there?
Is a dragon.
Yes.
Girl, we both know that I immediately looked up Smaug's date of birth. Because I was like,
Just
oh
to
my
make sure.
God, what if they bring in Smaug? Well, I found out that we're in the wrong time period for that, so that's disappointing.
Hello and welcome back to the channel. Amber here, back again with Laura, and we are jumping into episode 5 of the Rings of Power. And I have to say, this is where things start heating up. Things are really kicking off this episode. We've got all hell breaking loose in Númenor. We've got Annatar doing his thing. We've got some issues in Khazad-dûm.
We got issues everywhere.
There's issues all over the place. Was there any one plot line that really stood out to you this episode?
I really liked the Númenor plotline.
Same, same. I was shocked because last season Númenor was kind of like meh for me.
Definitely.
This time around, I think it might be one of the best side plots, I guess. I don't know if it's really a side plot, but that's what I'm going to call it. And I feel like I caught a lot of new things the second time watching.
Yes.
A lot of little hidden things in the dialogue in Númenor.
Yes, I would agree, definitely. Númenor last season didn't do a lot for me, but like you were saying, how it's really popping off. We got a lot of political intrigue. There's betrayal.
So this episode starts out with King Durin taking his rings. And as soon as he's got that ring on, things are not looking good. But we have him scurrying around and finding new veins, or I guess not new veins, but he's finding all of the points to dig to bring back the light. But we learned that these are like foundation walls, so that's kind of scary. He's just blindly trusting the ring. So this is, I mean, we've seen it with Galadriel. We've seen it a little bit with Gil-galad. We've now got it with King Durin. And this is one of those weird things. I mean, we're going to go back to it again, but is Sauron causing the mountains to crumble, therefore giving King Durin a reason to really need this ring to get like under its influence?
Ooh,
Like,
that's a good question. Did you notice that during that like first shot with the Dwarf Lord rings, you can like faintly hear the whispering of black speech?
I didn't know that that's what it was, but I could hear, I have in my notes, there's whispering to him, like the rings are whispering to him. That was my
I just
interpretation.
assumed it was black speech. I have no confirmation that that's what it is. Because isn't that what like a lot of the rings kind of whisper in like the other movies and stuff?
I mean, I would assume because like they do have this almost otherworldly presence. It's reminding me a lot of in Wheel of Time when they get to Shadar Logoth and like you know that there's these weird entities out there, but they're not really like human, and you've got this kind of like mystical whispering in the background where you know it kind of clues in the audience like, hey, this ain't good.
Hmm.
But I mean, after all of this, my first initial thought was, well, it looks like Disa's out of a job because the rings are doing it for her. And this puts her in a pretty precarious situation because on one hand, if she steps up to talk negatively about the rings, not saying that this will happen, but someone could be like, "Oh, you're just upset because now you don't have like a job anymore.
Right.
What you can do, what's so special is now useless."
When you look at the shared connection between Disa and her fellow stone singers, it's very understandable that they have like big feelings about this. They failed to connect to the mountain, and the ring is quite literally making them obsolete.
Yeah.
It's interesting to me how you can like kind of see right off start that the dwarves are a little more susceptible to the influence of the ring than the elves are. Because
Yes.
King Durin takes almost no time to go off the rails.
Yeah, it's immediate. And another thing that's pretty wild too is we know that they're in this episode going to make the rings for men.
Right.
We haven't yet got to see what the rings do to men. And having said that, I feel like if that's something where they wanted to go in season 3, like the corruptibility of men, because we get a lot of conversation about this between Celebrimbor and Annatar, which was really interesting and more of things that I picked up on my second watch. But yeah. And I mean that actually just takes us right into the next scene because Sauron is like pushing it. Like we need to make these rings for men, but Celebrimbor is like, men are too weak, too greedy.
I was really excited. This is kind of off topic, but in the following scene with the Khazad-dûm emissary visiting Celebrimbor at first, the way that they revealed the
Hmm.
West Gate was very. I was like, "Ooh, I know that. What's the Elvish word for friend?"
Yeah. Yeah. That was a
It
really
was
good moment seeing that come back
it was
around.
totally unnecessary, but it was a nice nod to the movies.
Yeah.
Though I will say that Sauron's tantrum here was kind of the perfect bait for Celebrimbor. It gives him the opening to push for the rings of men, and while the elves may not necessarily trust the dwarves, it wasn't too difficult of a task for the rings for them. But both elves and dwarves do not trust the nature of men. And Sauron getting the go ahead on the rings themselves is going to require him to change a lot of the big picture perspectives that Celebrimbor has with his deceptions. And that is going to be a much more daunting task for Sauron. Well, Annatar.
Yeah. There's a couple instances in this episode where Celebrimbor he's acting very familiar with Annatar, like he'll put his hand on his shoulder while saying something and kind of turning and walking away. And you can see moments of Annatar kind of like flinching, like this act of Celebrimbor placing his hand on his shoulder in this familiar way is giving Sauron this like almost like a tick of like just the flinch of just anger and disgust behind his mask. It's just starting to slowly kind of creep out, and I feel like the audience is now we're just really starting to kind of see Annatar slash Sauron show his true face, I guess.
Yeah, to me, it definitely comes across as Annatar is really trying to get this done. And you can see like that like surface of his real self in the moments where he's really impatient.
Yeah, very impatient.
Look, he's trying to get this done. And as they're like kind of talking in this scene, we see a good example of that impatience leading to a deception starting to fall apart. Celebrimbor grows agitated, openly agitated with the conversation about the realms of men and just flat out accuses Annatar about being deceptive about everything.
Yeah, when you've got a true narcissist, when you call them out on something like that, the way that they're gonna react, it's not gonna be
Well,
good.
yeah,
It's not gonna
and
be
then we
good.
really see it kind of fall apart when Annatar tries to bring it back around to suit his agenda by claiming to want peace for all inhabitants of Middle Earth, this, that, and the other. I'm so
Yeah,
virtuous.
we'll find the most noble of
Right.
men. Yes.
But when that doesn't work, Annatar just simply informs Celebrimbor, we're going to be forging these with or without you. Like, time to get on
Yeah, I'll
board.
make them myself.
Which this kind
I'll
of
make them
leaves
myself.
Celebrimbor in a pickle. What do you do? Do you
Right.
admit to Gal Galad that you've been outright lying and deceptive and that things have, gotten beyond your control? Do you just try and handle it internally? Do you just go with it?
Do you just kick Sauron slash Annatar out and hope that someone in your workshop doesn't rat you out?
Right.
Like, all options are bad for him. So, Sauron's got him. He's got him. Mission accomplished. There was something that Annatar said here that was kind of interesting. He said, I fear Númenor more than any land in Middle Earth. I hoped our rings will make her stable, which I thought was really interesting because I don't know what he's talking about.
Does he know about the current political situation?
Yeah, like I have no idea. The only way he could know is if the elfstone, right? Like wouldn't that be
I don't know. I mean, he could have like basically like spy agents on the ground everywhere.
yeah. But is there a way for them to communicate
I don't
like in real time?
Uh,
People who know this world
I'm
tell
not
us.
actually sure of the full scope of power that Sauron has.
Yeah, like is he watching through the eyes of, the giant birds landing for Pharazôn's king
Hmm.
moment? I mean, since we're on the topic of Númenor, can we talk about Pharazôn's son? Because,
Are we talking
oh
about it like
boy.
in the context of that next scene?
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay, so for me this was a short scene, but it was pretty impactful, and we get to see just how power hungry Pharazôn is. And that
Oh yeah.
interestingly, some of it seems to be driven by jealousy of the elves and the accusation of their belief in their superiority, which could or could not be true. His son brings up how he's holding the scepter. He is now king of Númenor. He can build it in his image. But this is not enough to satiate his hunger for power.
Yeah. And we also learn more about their family as a whole because Pharazôn is telling his son that his mother had a prophecy that Pharazôn's son would come to an ill end. And I was like, oof, okay. And again, like another dead mother. So, like, we've got a lot of that going on. Now with Pharazôn's son, now with Isildur, now with Theo. It's a lot. Fantasy, gonna do fantasy things. Gotta have a lot a lot of dead moms. But his son wants to know more about this prophecy, and Farazan is basically just like, hey, you need to do a good job of doing my bidding, and then maybe I'll tell you the rest.
Yeah,
And it's like, what? What is this?
Kemen
What is this?
Kemen has a hard lesson to learn in this moment. And that lesson is that he is only worth his performance to his father. And I'm
Yeah.
interested to see in how that shapes him.
Yeah, and I'm really curious what his ill end will be. I feel like it's going to be something bigger than just what this infighting is at Numenor. I'm not sure if it'll be something in the political schemings of things or if it's something more deadly, more dark, you know?
It could be. It could also be that mouth of his gets him gutted on a street corner.
You know what? That would be an end very
That would be
fitting
a
for him. And
fitting end.
yeah. We also have Muriel and Elendil, where Elendil's like, he's ready to fight for his queen, you know? But we learn more about these visions from the Elfstone. Apparently, Elendil like had a different vision than Muriel has been having. And so she's kind of trying to soothe him and calm him down and say, hey, like you're the calm in the eye of the storm of this prophecy via the Elfstone. So you need to stay here. You need to simmer down and like leave me to what I'm going to do.
Yeah.
This whole Numenor situation has become way more ugly, way more brutal than I expected.
Oh, definitely. It really has.
I especially liked the scene on the street where we learned that Elendil's daughter has come up with this idea to strip anyone who is still loyal to the old queen, strip them of any rank. So all of these soldiers are kind of turning in their armor and everything. And at first I was like, "Oh man, Pharazon's son, what an evil little twerp. He's behind this." And come to find out, no, it's Elendil's daughter.
Yeah. One thing I noticed is that Arian and Elendil both genuinely believe in their righteousness of their positions. And this is working to create a very much more outwardly aggressive relationship between them.
I really don't know what to say about her. I want to try and find some way to sympathize for her, but I can't.
I
I've got nothing.
I understand that her grief over her brother's disappearance and how she blames her father and Muriel is like really affecting her, but I don't know is that like helping create a coup is the way to handle those feelings.
I could see where she thinks her brother was trying to be noble, but he was just too young to really make this decision for himself. And he was swayed by the idea of creating not so much a name for himself, but just kind of striking it out on his own,
Yeah.
like a coming of age type of thing where it's like, I'm an adult, I can make my own decision. And it being the wrong decision in her eyes, she's going to put this choice of his, she's going to blame the complex, like the the situation that got him there,
Right.
I guess. But the way that she's fighting with Elendil, I hate it. And I hate Pharazôn's son. I've been calling him Lil Pharazôn in my notes
Kemen,
because I can't. Is it
it's
Kemen?
Kemen. He really should have let everyone stand at attention when Elendil was walking away after turning in his weapon and having his rank stripped. My first question was, are you trying to start a goddamn riot in the streets, bud? Why would you do this with people who greatly respect him? These are also the people that you're going to be stripping of rank. There's only a handful of you, and there's a lot of them on this street right now.
Yeah, I thought that was a really powerful moment when Elendil kind of turns his back, and as he's walking out, someone yells, Captain, leaving deck, and then they're kind of all of his soldiers, all of his men are shouting these blessings to him. And that's a really powerful moment. But at the same time, now we're signaling to Kemen that he's going to have to do a lot more to squash this.
Yeah,
And if he's not smart about it, it's going to get
I
worse.
think part of Kemen's issue is he handles everything the way his father manhandles him
That's a good point.
and doesn't realize that nobody's afraid of him, nor do they
He's
respect
such
his rank, nor are they even afraid of like whatever power he possesses.
the man's a weasel. Like,
Really, he is. What did you think of when Aryan steps in and tries to speak with Valandil about helping him keep his position? But then she's like quickly met with apathy from him.
honestly, I would have been even more harsh with her. Her short sightedness and her, what is it, like pity, her trying to be helpful, her blindness in this situation of all of the problems that she's causing. Oh, he gave her way more leeway than I would have. Like, are we not witnessing the same thing, you and I?
Right.
He was in war with her father. He was one of his soldiers. And in season one, like they have a lot of moments together. There's a lot of moments too between the soldier and Isildur. So, like, this man is very acquainted with this whole family. And it's almost as if she assumes that she has a close relationship with this guy more so than what her father does.
Yeah, I really got the idea in season 1 that those were her brother's friends, and I think she's overestimating how that translates to her.
Yeah, I think she had a crush on him before they left in season one. Like there might have been a thing there. I could be wrong though.
Yeah, she learned very quickly that Valandil's loyalty is not for sale.
Yeah. What did you think about Pharazôn having the elfstone now?
Well, I thought that's like pretty predictable that he would pretend to be disgusted by the Palantir and then in one moment and then look to use it for his own benefit in the next.
I'm really curious what he sees and if what he sees he's able to use for his path forward, or if it's going to be something destructive that he sees that he's going to try and cover up because he's got a good thing going. He's the king now. He can't come in and be like, oh, like the sky is falling, destruction.
Right.
He wants to be this powerful voice of calm and good leadership. So I'm real curious if he's going to lie about something. I mean, he probably will. Whatever he sees, he'll probably lie anyways. But I'm real curious. And also, like, since I don't really know what this thing is, it seems like different types of people see different types of things. And I don't know if it's just like they're actually being given different visions or they're interpreting the visions differently or what. Like it's kind of confusing.
I think it gives like glimpses of the future. I think that's what the
Okay.
Palantirs do. But I know that there's more than one Palantir. I don't have enough like background info or understanding of them to like really make meaningful comments about them.
Yeah.
I will say this, the one thing I was focusing on in this scene is his eyebrows are eyebrowing.
Oh, you know what though? As much as I hate him, he's got some drip as well. Like the robes this man is wearing, he's serving looks. I can't deny that. And he's got a bit of the Sam Waterston eyebrow thing going
Definitely.
on.
The next scene, we have Gil-galad reading Celebrimbor's letter.
Yeah,
And
the
that
forge is
letter,
calm.
girl, that
Brighter
letter,
days ahead.
one lie after another. I will say this, like, when I was watching, I noticed that the look on Gil-galad's face makes me kind of question if he isn't buying it. That, like,
I don't think he
something
is.
seems off here to him.
I think he knows. I think in the depths of his body, he knows something's off, but then he's foreseeing evil via the ring. I almost have to assume that his intuition is working one way and then it's being backed up by these things that he's seeing, which I'm assuming are coming from the ring in the same way that Galadriel is getting these kind of premonitions.
Right. But the only issue is they're only getting glimpses from the ring. And that makes it really hard to like formulate and execute a plan based off a series of glimpses.
Right, right. I think he knows deep down everything going on in Eregion is not okay. I mean, nowhere is okay in this episode. Like
Yeah,
this,
but Eregion is like a FEMA disaster.
yeah, it's like the fire festival.
Yeah.
But Khazad-dûm is, I mean, every time we go back there, despite the season, how it's taken such a turn, like it's so dark, things are really not good there. I'm living for the dwarves. Disa struggling with the ring. She doesn't trust it. She's lost her job essentially.
Right.
But then she's out like in this little shopping market scene and she's buying something that looks suspiciously similar to the elfstone that they've got in Númenor, which I don't think it's the same thing. I think this is supposed to be like a carved crystal or
Isn't
something.
it a honing crystal?
That's what she said.
Yeah.
But she drops this thing and she like it rolls down into the mines and we learn that there's something down
It's
there.
a Balrog.
It's
It
a
has to
Balrog.
be. It has to be. Look, we know that there's a Balrog in Khazad-dûm. We already know
Yeah, we know
that.
it's down there.
That has to be what it is. Maybe I need to like pull up that scene from Lord of the Rings and like compare vocal tones between this entity and that Balrog. But you cannot convince me otherwise. Just let me see the Balrog. Just bring it on up.
Bring it on up.
I mean, what?
It's Rogan time.
Right. Like, and I get that, like, some of the stuff is going to be harder for them to make a surprise because, we already know what happens in a lot of these areas. And I'm not even talking about with people, I'm talking about in location.
Yeah.
And we know Khazad-dûm was basically overran by a Balrog.
Do you remember how it got down there?
No, I have no idea how it got down there.
Okay. Me either.
I just know it's there.
Same. I mean, I definitely remember it from last season. Like, how could you forget that thing? I don't remember how it got there, though, or if it was just always down there and just kind of woke up.
I have to imagine it would have just woken up because the Balrogs, aren't they like specifically agents of Morgoth? So wouldn't it have
I don't know.
been around, hanging out, hibernating, doing whatever it was doing in Khazad-dûm since like the time of Morgoth? I don't know. This is another thing where I feel like I don't know enough of the specific lore around things to be making comments. I'm literally just making guesses based on having seen the movies.
The only thing that would have been better than a Balrog down there
Is a dragon.
Yes.
Girl, we both know that I immediately looked up Smaug's date of birth. Because I was like, oh my God, what if they bring in Smaug? Well, I found out that we're in the wrong time period for that, so that's disappointing.
I mean, do they have any dragons in this time period?
So I actually did kind of look into this, like, and everything I find about dragons is specifically labeled in the second and third age. And I don't think Smaug comes around until like the end of the second or like early or somewhere near the third age, but Smaug won't be born for a very long time. I can say that.
But there has to be mom and dad dragons out there. What if maybe we'll see his father?
Ooh, maybe. There's not a lot of mention from what I Googled about dragons in the Second Age, just at all.
Girl, if they bring in a dragon
I
this
would be so
season or
happy.
next,
I would be
we
so happy.
we wouldn't shut up. We would be insufferable.
Yeah. I just want them to create just a small little clip of cute little baby Smell being born.
If they brought in a dragon, we would be
And
insufferable. It would be the dragon show. I mean, yeah.
I just thought about what I've been calling the next scene and it made me laugh.
What is it?
I've been calling it the Feast of the Seven Rings because all I can think about is just staring at those rings sitting on that like gold display platter. Yeah.
It was giving Last Supper in a way.
Yeah.
But
if the mob was running the Last Supper.
Look, King Durin's running a hard bargain, man. He really is the mob. He's the mafia. He's like, yeah, I'll give you these rings, but I want half of everything.
Half of everything.
My man.
What a racket.
Yeah.
Next thing you know, he's going to be charging merchants down in his market like protection fees.
Yeah. Waste management. Mm-hmm.
Ooh. I bet those rings are buzzing in excitement about all the greed that's happening.
Oh my gosh. That's a good point. Just vibrating. Not only is he wanting half of everything, but we get this panning shot where they're finding gold veins in the mines everywhere. Everywhere. It's popping. They're finding it all.
I mean, I get why they're finding it all because, with the ring on, King Durin kind of has like supervision from like, if you imagine the Matrix kind of thing.
Mm-hmm.
But he's really starting to feel the physical weight of the dark power in this ring.
Yeah. And poor Durin is just pleading, begging, like, don't dig, please. And Durin's just like, be gone.
I'm going to do what I want. This is my mountain now.
Yeah. It's the Rings Mountain now. This was giving me a lot of trouble thinking about just because it's so sad.
It is.
I know what happens to the dwarves, like the long story, like how everything ends up. And it's really unsettling watching that begin.
Yeah. And I don't know about you, but I did notice that as Durin lists out seeing all these physical attributes and properties of the mountain, he never mentions being able to see all the life living within it.
That's a really good point. He's really blinded.
Yeah, he's not realizing all he's seeing is like the mountain's blueprint.
Yeah. So I have to ask you about this next scene.
Okay.
With the equipment flying around.
The mayhem at the Forge of Eregion scene.
Be our guest.
It was, I had to pause it because I kept thinking about that scene from Beauty and the Beast. So I'm so glad you said that. And I'm not the only one that was like, where's Gaston?
No one gaslights like Sauron. No
right?
one pouts like Sauron.
Oh, I love it. You should make a mixtape.
What happens with the assistant when she materializes out of thin air after pulling the ring off?
She entered the Wraith world.
Oh.
So, okay. So you know how once the One Ring is forged much later down the line and eventually
yes,
Bilbo and Frodo have it, and you know how when they put it on they enter the shadow, like the Wraith realm that allows them to see both the Wraith realm and the present realm. That's what happened is she was transported into the Wraith realm and didn't know that if to get out she would just need to take the ring off. She really lucked out that Celebrimbor managed to just pull it off. But it also shows that that new ring being forged is significantly more powerful and devious than those forged before it.
So are we to assume that these rings that are kind of being ill-made, that's kind of what Annatar is saying and Celebrimbor is saying, like, oh, like he lied to Gil-galad, so there was deception involved, now the rings are unhappy. Is that really what's going on, or are these rings just extra tainted, something like that.
It
Like, I
it
don't.
definitely seems like there's something very different about this ring specifically. And like as Celebrimbor questions her, all she can really say is that they added more mithril to attempt to fortify the ring more against corruption. But that's
So this one
but
was
that's yeah,
just stronger?
I don't know. I was assuming that because Celebrimbor didn't really participate in this one, Annatar had way more creative freedom.
Okay.
That was
Okay.
my interpretation of it. Was just that like maybe this was a test run for the One Ring.
I'm really okay. People listening, I'm really curious if you have some insight here. Let me know in the comments because I'm really curious about this one ring in particular, or I guess this batch that went bad, I guess. Sauron really tricks Celebrimbor into revealing how to make the ring, right?
Yeah.
He starts talking like, no, you have to do this. And Celebrimbor kind of just walked right into the trap of, I guess, revealing how to do it. So, in doing that, he's kind of signifying, like, hey, everyone, this is what we need to do. And he's really becoming even more of an accomplice in all of this in a way. But as that's all going on, Annatar is really gassing up this assistant,
Yes.
and it's creepy.
Yes. Celebrimbor's commitment to not admitting to what he's done is allowing this situation to spiral much further out of control than I think he
Yeah.
realizes. And so, like, we go right from that instance, and then Durin arrives, and Celebrimbor is going from one bad ring situation right into a second one. He finds out during his visit with Durin that the ring that King Durin is wearing is absolutely corrupting him. And we kind of see at this point Celebrimbor go through the stages of like denial that his perfect creations could have such an insidious nature, as Durin tells him of how like the king has changed and questions him about the power of the rings and the virtue of Annatar. Celebrimbor doesn't really want to believe it, but at the same time, there's all this evidence pointing to corruption within the rings. It keeps being brought right to his face.
The more information that he's receiving, the more he's kind of
Yes.
spiraling. He's not in a good place right now. Like his workshop is, we've got tools flying around, we've got people disappearing, rematerializing, and being like, I saw essentially something that she's describing as a demon. What do you think in that instance? Like, if you're Celebrimbor, what do you
I
do?
don't know. Revert back to that pickle that he's in where he keeps just digging himself a grave.
Yeah.
Like he is digging this grave at this point.
Speaking of graves, this is where, if we move to the next scene, this is where I think things like hit a fever pitch for me in terms of the Númenor plotline. This funeral service that's going on.
Mm.
Oh boy. This is a lesson in how to have the worst PR possible.
This
Kemen,
this was
Kemen screwed up.
such a disaster. Kemen let his own insecurities and feeling unworthy blow this out of the water.
A funeral
Right.
service. We've got relics being smashed. Like this old man is like
Begging.
begging, like my wife can't go to the afterlife or whatever it is without this relic being here. They just pick it up and smash it. It was infuriating. It was hard to watch, but again, like it's one of those moments in television, media, movies where at this point, Pharazôn, he's like the bad guy, but Kemen's the one who's really he's so much worse than Pharazôn. He's so much worse because like you said, like his own insecurities are really just driving him to become such a loose cannon.
Yeah.
And this is how you get an uprising. Like this is it, point
Yeah, this
blank.
is
There's going to be
exactly how you get an
problems.
uprising.
Exactly. How's Pharazôn going to feel when he hears about what went down? How's he going to be able to kind of quash
That's
this?
something I'm really curious about is how Pharazôn is going to take this. I'm also curious about how Arion's going to take this.
Yeah, because the soldier is stabbed, the one that she had a connection to in the last scene. I think this was probably one of the hardest scenes that we've gotten yet.
I was pretty excited when Kemen's arm got broken.
Oh, that was
That was a
delightful.
nice high point in the scene.
I don't see how you can come back from this.
I don't either.
The rumors are going to spread. Everybody's going to know what happened down there. Everyone's going to know that essentially what it looks like is Pharazôn sent down some goons to just kind of break things up under the guise of like, we need this funeral room for a new aqueduct. Like, what? That's weak. That's weak.
Yeah, that is not what I would have said in there. I would not be like,
No.
"Hey, we're busting up your shrine because we want to put in some infrastructure
Right.
that we clearly already have."
I'm curious to see where Númenor as a plot line goes in season 3.
I am too because it's super volatile right now.
We'll put a pin in it. This is a lot more of like back and forth. These next scenes are all within Eregion. We've got Celebrimbor and Annatar.
Yeah, this is an interesting sequence of scenes to me. So first, Celebrimbor is presented with a choice: disclose the deceptions to Gil-galad, thereby removing the cloak of deception and foraging, or don't, and quote plunge straight on deeper into the maelstrom.
Mm-hmm.
And obviously, we find out that Celebrimbor decides to plunge right on deeper in. But not just that, but when he's giving that little speech to his apprentices about forging the rings, he decides to pass the buck of blame around to all of them.
Yeah, he gaslights all of them.
And then is like, but don't worry, you can redeem yourself by redeeming the 7 corrupt rings in the forging of the 9 rings for men, which he does not explain how that works. And then he just makes it clear, if you don't do this successfully, you're done.
Yeah, something that Annatar does in this situation is so incredibly clever and calculated and just awful, but he plays the part of the very faithful apprentice, where he's like, you heard what the man said, like, let's get back to work. We can do it together. Let's go. Like, he's giving this pep talk as if he's the apprentice, as if he's not really running the show,
Right.
as if he's just, the second in command, like just being a good apprentice, going off of what his mentor is like trying to will into existence, right? And this is interesting because now it's kind of putting Annatar in this situation where you've seen him cozying up to this woman, the other assistant, everyone who's down there working is seeing Annatar as kind of this reasonable voice of like calm. And this instance has made Celebrimbor look a little off, you know?
Yeah.
Like he gave this speech and it kind of feels like something's up. They've been down there working on all of this for him. And then he comes down and he's like, hey, look, you guys messed up. Needs to be better. I want better from you. So he's giving these like bad boss vibes, you know? Like he's got the workroom probably thinking, what's up with this? What's going on?
Definitely. It's really interesting to me that we see these small instances where a character could try to right their recent wrongs, but each and every one of them choose the rings instead.
Yeah.
And like, don't get me wrong, I can understand that Celebrimbor is fearful of the consequences of being honest with Gil-galad about what's happening in Eregion, but his deceptions here are so widespread and like a butterfly effect consequence.
Yeah.
If he had just been honest, the rings never would have been forged.
I can't remember what Annatar says, but there's one thing that he says that almost kind of hints at Celebrimbor being unreasonable, but he kind of like he says it in a way with like plausible deniability. Like he's worming that information into the workroom, but in such a deceptive way where like, yeah, it's pretty 4D chess, if you will.
It absolutely is.
So there's also this scene that I think is really important that I don't want to skip. And King Durin, he's not going to stop using the rings, but he does give Prince Durin this like neck plate back. He's reinstated him as prince.
Right.
We also have Durin swearing that he will never wear one of these rings to Disa. Like he waddles on into the room and she's like, "Did it work? Is he gonna quit using the ring?" And Durin's wearing like his prince neck plate and she's like, "Oh shit." Like that did not
That didn't
go
go
how I planned.
anywhere near how she planned.
Yeah.
Really, the best that Disa can hope for at this point is that Durin will keep his oath and never wear the ring.
Yeah. And I mean, since I know where that story goes, I kind of feel like that's not gonna happen.
Well, yeah,
Like I hope. I'm hoping. I've got hope. I know how things end up because of the books and the movie. Like I do remember that part, but I don't know what Durin's role in all of that is. And I'm hoping. I'm hoping because I sure do love the guy.
right?
I think really like to sum this whole episode up, like the last big thing that we learn is the orcs are looking onward to Eregion. Like Adar's troops are there, they are ready. Elrond like rushes in to Gil-galad and he's like, "Yo, orcs are there. They're headed that way. Send the army. Galadriel was right. I was wrong." And now they're stuck because they're having to fight a battle on two fronts.
Yeah.
They're stuck between Adar and they're stuck between Sauron. They don't have enough men to split their army. So what are they going to do?
Interestingly, we also find out why Adar has taken Galadriel on the road with him.
Yeah, like, hey, want to be
Yeah, the
allies?
enemy of my enemy is my friend.
Yep. This was probably my favorite episode. Out of one, two, three, four, five, I think five has been my favorite out of the group so far.
I'm really excited for episode 6
Yeah,
because
yeah.
at this point we have multiple factions of Middle Earth have descended into some form of chaos. We've got King Durin believing that he is the supreme being of the mountain and all dwarves. Númenor is a political battleground. Eregion is being set upon by a legion of orcs and has Sauron like already infiltrated inside. And then in Linden, Gil-galad is trying to strategize how they're going to fight both Adar and Sauron without having to fight them at the same time. And then if we check in Rune, the Dark Wizard, aka Acolyte Man, is hunting the strangers while his minions hunt the halflings. Like, I feel like we're on the precipice of total war and chaos.
Yeah, I think this is why I like this episode so much because sure it's a lot of doom and gloom, but there's action at every turn. There is so much happening and I'm catching so much in the dialogue where I didn't expect this show to get so deep and twisted and kind of just like it's really full of things that I didn't think it would be in terms of like dialogue and little moments here and there between characters where like I'm feeling like I'm missing a lot. And even watching these episodes multiple times, every time I go back, I'm like, oh, okay. So like this was said, that's going to be an issue for later, or that's going to clear up one of the questions I had earlier. There's a lot of little nuggets here and there.
Definitely.
I'm impressed. I was lukewarm on season one. Like, I didn't really think about it, I just watched it.
Yes, same.
This is forcing me to really think about it.
Yeah, that's a good point to make. I am really enjoying how chaotic the story is right now.
It makes it really
It
fun. Like,
does.
even though it's so dark, like, it's really fun to watch, like, everything just crumbling. This is why I feel like this season feels like a act two of a three-part act because that's usually the darkness looming, darkness rising part of the story where you're going to see all of your characters like really tested and just I mean essentially like they get beat down, thrown around, and where season one felt real easy and light in a way, this feels like there's going to have to be a lot of growing and a lot of leveling up for anyone to achieve anything.
Yeah.
And as we've seen earlier in the season, we don't have a lot of people necessarily working together, especially when it comes to Elrond and Galadriel. So at this point, at the end of this episode, him kind of rushing in and being like, she was right. She was right. I'm really excited because that lends me to believe that now their relationship can kind of overcome this big issue that was present in the first half of the series. And it also didn't go on too long. They could have milked that all the way to the end, but now he's insisting she was correct. I was wrong. And that's huge in terms of what it means for their relationship.
I gotta tell you, I am really excited to see how these next 3 episodes go.
Well, I think, you know what? Since you just said that, for people listening, I'm really curious to know what people think is going to happen
I am too,
too.
especially because I have like so little real knowledge about the lore and the universe. So I'm really kind of like piecemealing things together out of basically just what I know from the movies and a couple things I've Googled.
Yeah. You know what also made this episode feel so fast for me?
Hmm.
We didn't have any stranger or acolyte man or Harfoot happening or Theo Isildur stuff.
Oh,
I
that's
think
true.
these were all the strongest plot lines so far, and it all culminated in this one episode.
I have honestly enjoyed probably each episode I've watched more than the last.
They're all really good. Like I still really like episode 1. That was a very solid
It
episode.
was.
But yeah. Well, let's end it there. Thanks for listening. Thanks for watching. We will be back. Like and subscribe. Please send us your comments. We've got a lot of questions, so maybe you can fill in some gaps for us. We will see you back next time.